So this is what it looks like whenever you have 10 clients and you have your churn rate, if you accepted it and you sit on them and you don't push on sales and you say, I'm going to have a great life now, everything's cool. And then what happens? The churn rate that you didn't calculate in the very beginning creeps up on you, and then you start freaking out because you're losing clients. Does that sound familiar to anyone that said that they relaxed on their sales? Did that happen to you? Of course it did. It's churn rate. If you're not calculating it, you would. If you calculate churn rate on your annual, you will never sit complacent, ever, ever. Okay. Situation number 2. Now let's say that you hired project managers or client retention managers to try to save your retention issue if you thought you had one at 10%, and you wanted to cut down your retention effort to 5%. So this is what happens whenever you get comfortable on sales and you stop pushing on sales. If you are going to start pushing when you got comfortable in sales, maybe you lose one client, and what do you start pushing on? To fix your churn rate, right? Because you're not onboarding a lot of sales. That takes effort. It takes energy. You need to ramp it up. You've got your client base. Maybe you got comfortable, and now you're sitting on your clients, and you say, okay, I lost a client. Oh, my God, I need to go, and I need to fix all these clients, and I need to look into them, and I'm scared I'm going to lose them to the client because I'm not pushing sales. So let's say that you did do that, and let's say that that's what you did, and you weren't bringing in inbound sales, which I understand there'd be a different distribution in real-life world, but let's say that you decreased your churn rate by half, and now you're sitting at 5%. And that means that if you started with 10 clients, at the end of 10 months, you're sitting with 5 clients. Is that something that any of you want? No, of course not. So let's look at a different example. Let's take it back up to a 10% churn rate. And what if you hired a salesman instead of diving into, because this is what the bigger companies do. Let's just say that you were sitting at a 10% churn rate, and instead of diving in to fix your churn rate at take it down to 5%, you hired a salesman instead and started converting 10 additional clients each month. What happens at the end of that 5 months? Just 5 months. That's not 10 months, that's 5 months. Versus the first diagram at 10% attrition rate, at the end of 10 months, you're sitting with 1 client. At 5 months, you're sitting at 40 on this one. That's a big deal, right? Can anyone do the calculation based on a 10% churn rate and tell me what it would be at 10 months? What's that one? That's massive. 10 months is, I don't know, like 70 or something like that. That's the difference in a graph. Let me show you that one more time. It's 10% attrition with 5 clients at the end of 10 months without your inbound sales that are there at a 10% churn rate. And there's your 5-month mark with 40 clients at 10 inbound because you hired a salesman and didn't relax. Jimena says, at the end of 10 months, you're sitting at 90 clients. I think that math's wrong because we're looking at a monthly 10% down. I think it's more like 70, but yeah. Greg says good salespeople are expensive, but I would disagree because I've seen a lot of companies hire people on commission-based only, pay nothing for them, and they're making a lot of money. They really are. They're doing it. And it's just not in online marketing. Look at all the other industries that they're making it work for them in. Okay. Now, let's look at another graph. What if you hired 2 salesmen and you were converting 20 clients a month at a 10% attrition rate, a 10% churn rate? Now you said this is going to be working. And who cares how many, if you did have to hire the salesman and they were not commission-based, if you did make it work, if you were aggressive. And keep in mind, the big companies that are making this work, the companies that are able to push $500 million a year, the companies like, I think it's, what was it, Reach Local, where their average sales guy has got to be pushing about $500,000 a year in revenue. If they can do it, why can't you? I mean, really, if they can do it, why can't you? You can do it. You can absolutely do it. You need to figure it out. But it's not rocket science. It's not. All these other companies can do it with a really bad product, with a bad reputation, and they hire in the same people. Why don't you go hire one of their sales guys? They're sitting over there with 900 of them. Why don't you go get one of those guys? You know what I mean? So for all of you out there who says, I can't make this work, I haven't been able to make it work. Well, they're sitting over there on 1,000 salesmen. There's got to be probably projected on that with all these other big companies that are out there. There's got to be about 5,000 of those guys sitting in the United States. And you know what? I'll bet whatever commissions you'd give to them would be a lot higher than they're making right now. In fact, I know that they are. Okay. So at the end of 5 months on onboarding 20 clients a month with a 10% churn rate, you're looking at 74 clients. 74 clients. So you have to wonder, if you're ever in a situation where you're facing losing a client, does your anxiety come because you're losing a client, or does your anxiety come because you don't have the sales to replace it? It's a good question, isn't it? Okay, calculating churn rate we went over. This is a churn rate brainstorm. Let's say you bring in 10 clients a month and typo, lose 1 client a month. That's a 10% churn rate, right? What is your churn rate over 6 months? It's 11%. So how long until you plateau in sales? Sorry, I'm just been hurrying on this one. With this given churn rate versus onboarding rate. How long until you plateau? Well, if you're consistently onboarding 10 new clients every single month, and if your churn rate is at 10, 11% per month, then you're losing 1 client a month per each 10 block that you brought on, right? Which means on the 10-month mark, which is exactly what this diagram, on the 10-month mark, you would have lost 10 clients and you would have brought on 10 clients. Is everyone following me on that? For every, on a 10% churn rate, if you bring on 10 clients a month and saying you lose 1 client a month, every single month you would lose 1 out of those 10 block that comes on, which means that 10 months into this, if you're still onboarding 10 clients a month, on that 10th month, you would lose 10 clients. So you brought on 10 and you would lose 10 in the 10th month. The question is, what would you do on month 11 when you would have lost 11 clients and only brought on 10? So at that sales, with the sales rate remaining consistent and a churn rate remaining consistent, at some point in time they plateau. How many of you have ever plateaued in your sales and not understood why? How many of you have ever reached a certain point and said, man, I seem to always level out at this amount of revenue. It just always comes back to it. I don't know why, man. I get up to here, I go back down to there. I get up to here, I go back down to there. It's like I'm cursed at that amount of revenue. I don't know why. I'm just right there. Well, sales meets churn rate. It's that simple. Sales meets churn rate. So what small, medium businesses are doing a lot in online marketing that I see over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm serious, like 98% of the time, when their sales are going good, they do not scale their sales team. They keep it consistent. And when that churn rate catches up and plateaus with sales, I see companies taking the wrong reaction to it, in my opinion, which is they dive into, well, actually I have other slides that I'll get into that into. The question is, what would you do in month 11 whenever for the first time you actually start to lose momentum on your revenue? What would you do? Ken says add a rep. 98% of the time I see people run into this situation, they do not add a rep. Yeah, everyone's saying the common sense thing is to add a salesperson, add a sales rep, add a sales rep. I'm telling you, on small, medium, online marketing businesses, 98% of the time, people do not do it. They don't do it. Ryan says that doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. If something's going right, I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if it's because when sales gets there, people relax, or when sales gets there, people hire more project managers or more software or a new car, or what it is. But what they don't do is keep their financial equation the exact same and invest back into sales to keep that momentum going. And then they're never calculated their churn rate. It catches up to them, and they freak out. And then they start screaming at us thinking that we're offering a bad product, which just isn't true. Churn rate. Okay. So, startup. Small business failure statistics. I want to talk to everyone a little bit about churn rate in the industry and why we talk about churn rate, right? How many, according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months, a whopping 80% crash and burn. How many businesses make it through their 5-year mark? Does anyone know that? Can someone give me a statistic? I didn't pull it, but I needed that one. It's on my slide. Someone help me out here. What's the statistics on that? I'm getting 20%, 5, 10. Anyone got a real statistic from a real site that they can reference for me? If you could put a link in or something from a site, that'd be great. I can reference it. I'll wait for someone to dig that up. And thank you. Justin's doing a PhD in this area. You go get that then. Awesome. All right. And what are the major reasons for small business failures? I can open this up and go through it. I don't think that I'm going to. Startup business failure rate by industry. Maybe you can look at these links if you want to and dive into it. One of the things that you have to understand is the economic landscape of business. You are a marketing company, which means that people pay you when they're making money. Okay? But if 80% of them fail and people pay you when they're making money, does that mean that you're going to struggle with your churn rate? You see how that connects in? You're a marketing company. Okay, I've got Forbes sites, 5 reasons 8 out of 10 people fail. Yeah, but I'm looking for the stat on how many companies come out after 5 years that are still in business or profitable. Anna says year 5, 55%. I'm going to pick that stat up. Someone tell me otherwise. She gave me a link to it. That sounds good to me. So if about half of them aren't making it through their 5-year mark, and you're servicing the local business community, unless you're picking up a business that's in business for more than 5 years, and I'd have to look at the statistics on businesses that make it past the 10-year mark, wouldn't you say that your churn rate would be based on the success rate of the general businesses that are out there and how the economy is doing? Wouldn't that make sense? And even if you're doing a good job marketing, and Michael says 34% after 10 years, and even if you're doing a good job marketing, if the majority of companies don't make it and 50% make it past the 5-year point, and only 30% of them that started make it past the 10-year point, what does that mean to your churn rate as a marketing company? And I think a lot of people really don't think about this. I think that most people just think about your churn rate is based on the quality of your services. But that's not true. How many of you have done good marketing services for a client and lost them? How many of you have produced what you should have produced for what you were paid for a client and you still lose them? Well, look at the business statistics that are out there on the failure rate of businesses. You are a marketing company. You are dependent on their success. Unless they're just busy and they're doing good, they'll keep paying for you regardless of really the performance sometimes. But even if you're performing for them, your churn rate is still going to be based on local businesses and their success rates. So you have to understand that. That's something that you have to beat in your head. You have to understand your churn rate. You need to understand the economy a little bit. You need to understand success rates of businesses. And you need to understand that even though you're a marketing company, you're going to lose clients because clients typically don't make it out of the business gates anyways. Unless you're working with a pre-existing business that's been in business for more than 10 years and they're on a high-flying grade, which would be great. But the typical local marketing company, they're not that. All right, so you got to keep that in mind, okay? You're in the business of providing online marketing services to make clients happy and to make more money and to make them more money. And if you're able to hook up with a good small marketing or a good local service or product provider and they're doing great in their business, I'm sure you're going to be able to complement them very well. Regardless of your marketing efforts, if you're with a company that's on a downward trend, there's a lot of things that apply to a company going under that has nothing to do with their marketing at all. So top 10 reasons why small companies remain small. I'm going to go through the top 10 as quickly as I can to wrap this up. And this is a really important top 10. So hopefully you keep in mind what we talked about the mindset of the big companies and how they're doing, what they're doing. And hopefully you're keeping in mind right now also about churn rate and understanding churn rate in the industry. And if you want to be conservative on churn rate, stick to 10%. And 10% churn rate, by the way, is a pretty high churn rate, okay? That's not an easy pill to swallow if you've got 10 clients and you're losing a client a month. You got to understand that, but that's real, and it really is real. Top 10 reasons why small online marketing companies stay small. I'm going to start from the bottom and work up to the number one reason.